Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we will be taking a spoiler-free look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 85. This chapter was different. Usually, a Kaiju number 8 chapter leaves me jazzed up and with a very pleasant adrenaline rush. This chapter was oddly timed from a personal perspective and left me feeling very somber, because it addresses a very tragic real-world issue, which is one of the powers of science fiction, be it manga or traditional Western movies, whatever the genre. One of the great powers of sci-fi has always been able to address horrific real-world issues that you would never get past the censors on regular television So I'm going to address that. This will be a rather disturbing conversation, so just be warned. Also, well, there was our missing pages. Everybody noticed that last week the chapter was short. We only had 21 pages as opposed to the usual 23 or 24. And lo and behold, this week the chapter is rather long. This was because Matsumoto had two specific story beats to tell, and rather than forcing them both to be 24 pages, he gave us a short chapter followed by an extra long chapter. And I think that was just good tactical planning, a good tactical choice on Matsumoto's part. So if you were worried about getting stinted a couple pages last week, Matsumoto made up for it this week. So, back when I was in university, we would have chapel. We would have people come in, documentarians from all over the world, to kind of force us out of our little university bubble and see what was going on in the parts of the world that were not as peaceful as what we were used to. And one of these times that we had someone come and speak of it to us, it was a documentarian who had gone to northern Uganda. And they had made a documentary on what became known as the Invisible Children. There was a civil war going on, and there was literally crazed dictators living off in the jungle, and over 60,000 boys were kidnapped and brutally tortured and forced to be child soldiers. The documentarians went and talked to these, and when I say boys, I mean boys. I'm not talking teenagers. I'm talking boys who don't come up to your waist, boys who still speak with a lisp because their mouths are growing in. These were boys 5, 6, 7 years old. And in the interviews, they're holding guns and machetes. And these are boys who have done, again, I'm going to talk about some disturbing things. These are boys who went into orphanages and committed terrible acts of murder. Again, they're all boys under the age of 10. And that is because, again, they were kidnapped and tortured and brainwashed. This is something very real that happened in the early 2000s. And the entire world was ignoring it because it was just one more civil war going on in a part of the world that was rife with civil wars. And this documentarian was desperately trying to draw attention to this and succeeded. The main documentary came out in 2012, and the situation in Uganda has stabilized. Most of these boys have been sent back to their families. They've gotten therapy, but they're never going to be the same. They're never going to be quite normal adults. And this concept of child soldiers is one that's fairly near and dear to my heart, something I've been following for years now. And I was seeing evidence of this theme as early as probably the mid-30s chapters. I have videos about this up on my channel, and I've discussed this with other YouTubers. But because this was just something I think about on a regular basis, I was always keeping in mind that I might have been seeing things that aren't there. But with this chapter, with the culmination of the Kaiju number 15 story arc, it's not a spoiler that happens in this chapter. We all saw it coming. It can it is very clear to me that that is a theme that we're going to be seeing again and again in this manga, which is a very heady theme to put in any Shonen Jump manga. When you get the presence of such a tragic real-life theme being addressed in a manga, it feels almost petty to continue your analysis from a literary perspective, but the analysis from the literary perspective is what I do, and it's kind of the framework that this theme is being addressed in, so on with it. The concept of a child soldier, again, I was kind of half suspecting that I was only seeing not necessarily what I wanted to see, but what I was predisposed to see, and perhaps Matsumoto wasn't actually putting that in there. This chapter lays that to rest. Now, in classic Shonen Jump manga, we have the I can't forgive you scene. Again, not a spoiler, you've all seen that coming. But I don't think that Matsumoto is going to leave it there. I think we are going to get to further explore the concept of child soldiers through Kaiju number 8. Again, if you, as I've gone over in many videos, if you go back and look at the behavior of the little kaiju that started this all, its behavior is entirely consistent with a mental toddler slowly learning from its caregiver, because its caregivers in this instance being Reno and Kafka. We have the little guy being traumatized by Reno and Kafka's reactions to venting steam, so we never see him vent steam again. We have the little guy imprinting on Kafka as the caregiver, the provider of food, the mom friend, and then we have the little guy clearly taking partial control of the fight when Kaiju number 8 is facing down Kaiju number 9 for the first time to protect Reno and Aiharu. Then we have the way that the little guy seized control from Kafka when Director General Shinamaya had him backed into a corner. And then we had Kafka assuming it was only his own fear that was preventing him from transforming the battle with the ants, but it might very well have been the little guy's fear as well. So I think through Kaiju number 8, we are going to get a sympathetic character that will allow us to explore this concept. And again, this is a very heavy conversation topic for what is generally a very lightweight video. I apologize if I traumatized you. If you want to look up at the continued efforts of the people who did the documentary on the Invisible Children, just Google the Invisible Children Uganda, and it'll take you to their website. And I am beginning to suspect that that topic is near and dear to Matsumoto's heart, and we will be exploring that more in the future. On a more technical note, and this is not a spoiler for this chapter because it hasn't happened yet, but it looks like the battle arc is on the upswing and the defense force is going to be pulling out a victory, albeit a very costly victory. The city has taken a lot of damage. The defense force has suffered a lot of injuries already. This will not be a very triumphant victory, even if everybody wins their fights from here on out. But at this point in a lesser manga, the victories will start popping up with no better justification than, say, willpower or the power of friendship. But I think over the past several chapters, Matsumoto has set up a very, very good reason for the battle to start turning. One, Kaiju number 8 showing up and flaring his full energy has thoroughly distracted every kaiju on the battlefield. We saw that in a previous chapter. And so at least their orders, we now know, are to turn and focus on combating Kaiju number 8. Meanwhile, the Defense Force officers they're fighting aren't going to let up on them. So that automatically, already in the chapter, Matsumoto has established an extremely good reason for the tide of the battle to turn. And then on top of that, the kaiju that had been specifically designed to take out the greatest threat, Kaoru Shinamaya, has now been thoroughly defeated. This is a kaiju that Kaiju number 9 has been deliberately crafting for that task. The other kaiju will know about her, and they will have felt her death. So that will have been a severe blow to them. One of the strongest of their number has now been trounced. So they've taken a severe blow to morale, and these are kaiju with intelligence enough and complex emotions enough to take a severe blow to morale, unlike the lesser kaiju who just keep fighting no matter what. So I just want to point out that if the battle starts to turn in the upcoming chapters, Matsumoto has set out 2 very good reasons. You have a sudden surge in the morale boost of the defense force, a drop in the morale and focus of the kaiju, and it would be logically consistent with the rest of the story for this turn in the tide of battle to happen. And I just think that's very good writing, and I wanted to mention it because I appreciated it. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Am I reading too much into what might have just been a bid for sympathy? Do you think that Matsumoto has some sort of research or emotional connection with the very real world problem of child soldiers? And how deep do you think Matsumoto is going to go into that in the coming chapters? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button. Go check out the links below the video to get a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out, and Dying Embers, Dragons, Aliens, and Things That Go Boom in the Night. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.